All right, 1:45, everyone. Thanks for staying with us here on Chicago Live. We are still waiting on that big announcement to come from President Trump that we do believe will be about the Trump accounts. These will be for children throughout the U.S. We knew that it was probably going to be delayed because the cabinet meeting lasted so long, but we want to talk about the issue or the topic that really ushered that in. And that would be a big donation that took place today for Giving Tuesday of $6.25 billion. This was donated by Michael and Susan Dell. They pledged this amount to provide 25 million children under 10 in the U.S. an incentive to claim the new investment accounts that will be announced shortly that have been dubbed the Trump accounts for children created as a part of President Trump's tax and spending legislation. I want to go ahead and bring in Victor Wang, CEO of Stockpile, to talk a little bit more about investment accounts for kids as we await this announcement. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so let me just ask you, before we even get the announcement, what is your assessment of what could possibly be announced? The possibility of these Trump accounts.
Yeah, I think the big thing around the news with Michael and Susan Dell, it's a huge and amazing commitment that they've made. It's money invested for the future that has enormous impacts, more than the money itself. It changes the perspective of kids and families. It changes their hopes and expectations for the future. It changes graduation rates. It changes college attendance. It can change the way an entire generation thinks about their future and what it looks like. And that really is the importance of that amazing commitment that Michael and Susan Dell have made.
Yeah, it really is about building wealth and changing, I guess, family dynamics working into the future. And as I understand it, it would be for kids in certain zip codes that make under $150, I believe, $1,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And, I think it's such a big thing with so many families in those types of zip code. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And more than most communities, it's hard to take that first step into investing. And so whether it's $250, $1,000, most importantly, it's a perfect way for families to start investing for their kids' futures. And from that learning experience with their kids, hopefully we're creating a whole generation of financial literacy, confidence, and financial opportunity, and really making everybody be able to take that first step. There was this great marathon runner that had this great quote that said, the most difficult part of every morning run is the trip out the front door. Mm-hmm. So really what it is it's helping people take that first step that is so difficult for these families to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've run a couple of marathons, and I would agree with that. just getting out the door sometimes is the hardest step. So let's talk about, how people, I do believe that this broadens out the number of people, the demographics of people that would typically look at the stock market as something to invest in.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the funny things is that a lot of people who don't invest, the biggest limitation is themselves. So many people feel like the investing opportunities aren't open to them, that it's reserved for a select few. And we really need to work to change that perception. And I think with the Trump accounts, with what Michael and Susan Dell have been doing, that's such an important part of the message that we're sending. That opportunity is open to everybody who takes the chance on it.
Okay, so what is the best type of investment account, you would say, for a child?
It really depends on every family and their priorities. There's 529s, which are specifically for college, but the world is changing. I think the thing about the Trump accounts that's really different is it allows them to do different things and not just college. Some kids have different non-traditional paths. They may want to start their own business. They may want to invest in a house. They may want to do different things besides college. And this gives that flexibility for families to plan out futures that might be different than just attending a traditional four-year college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a really good point. As more people look to options outside of college, traditional four-year colleges, especially there, that some former plans would only have a pipeline too. So I guess maybe the aspect of the U.S. government providing an investment account to children, do you think that politicizes it and may turn some people away from it?
I don't think it does. I think most important is that it does that thing we're talking about, which is helping people take the first step, right? Creating opportunity, creating consideration to make those choices. We're challenged because as a society, it's difficult for us to talk about money. Our studies show that over 50% of parents never talk to their kids about money. And when we have that investment account available to talk about with kids, that changes the entire dynamics within a family, that it's something to talk about rather than avoid. And this is a perfect opportunity to have that investment account be the thing, the center of how parents can start talking about that money.
Mm-hmm. And how would you talk to a child about starting to invest?
The big thing is starting very simply and starting talking about things that they're interested in, right? I think, lots of kids have interest in Netflix, Roblox, Microsoft, Apple. Talk to them about that. Investing is owning a small part of that company. And when we teach kids that, and that when you invest in those opportunities, that's a way to make money, that doesn't mean you going to a job and working for every minute. This is a way of making money with your money. And when we teach kids the power of that, then it changes the way they think about their time. So I think that's, anything that's from their interest is a way to get them involved in those discussions.
I like that. I really do. So what do you think are some of the common mistakes then that families make or that parents make when it comes to investing and maybe helping the younger generation to understand the importance of investing?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistakes that most parents make is just never talking about money. I think, we've seen quite a bit where the time that parents talk to their kids about money is when they're right about to head out the door to college, right? And that's a little bit late to have that discussion. But so when you can have those conversations early, when you have kids involved in decisions, when they have agency over their own decisions about investing, it creates a natural curiosity and interest. It means they have the opportunity to learn. It means they have the opportunity to make mistakes and continue to improve. I think we all know kids often learn more from their mistakes than their successes. And we would obviously rather have them make mistakes with $5 or $50 rather than $50,000. And that's the opportunity of having those discussions and having those lessons at the earliest possible age.
Mm-hmm. So this essentially is tied to the idea that the country economically will continue to grow. Is that maybe risky, even politically, to sign off on? Because if there is recession, if there is a dip, it's all tied back to you.
It is, and I think that's actually an important, real lesson for kids to have. I think the false lesson for kids to learn is that, hey, if you invest, you're always going to make money, and that simply isn't true. And one of the things, we have parents that say, well, if I have my kids invest, what if they lose money? That's a good lesson for them to learn, is that sometimes you're going to lose money, and you want it to be thinking long term, not about the stock fluctuations on any particular day. In the long run, the stock market has continued to grow, but there are going to be peaks and valleys. And what's important for parents and kids to learn is that those are real and those are going to happen. And it teaches kids financial resilience. It teaches them patience. It teaches them long-term thinking. And those are things we want kids to know, the real circumstances around those decisions.
Yeah, that is important. So I'm seeing that it's pretty unusual that this would operate through investment accounts set up by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, but then be managed by private companies. Are there some pitfalls there?
Well, there's a set of rules around it, and all the rules are still being finalized, but there's a maximum on fees. There's maximums on the types of investments that they can make. They can't invest in like meme stocks. There's very clear guidelines of what can be done and what can't be done. And so that's one of the things I like about it, is that it's very clearly laid out of that it's not a free-for-all investing structure. It's very restricted, it's very limited, and it's a great way for people to invest in a safer way early on, especially people who are just starting to invest. It's a way for them to look at ETFs rather than individual stocks.
Mm-hmm. So I see that when the children turn 18, they can withdraw the funds to put toward their education, to buy a home, or to start a business. When you think about that, does that then, you were just speaking of like early investors. Is 18 at that time when they're withdrawing or, have the possibility to withdraw? Is that where, they can start to make their own decisions as to whether they continue to put in or invest differently, or maybe change the outlook of their accounts?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think as an industry we like, is that it's creating a nation of educated investors who've been through that experience. So I think by the time they're 18, they've already had a number of years under their belt making these financial decisions. And at that point, making decisions about, is college right for me? Is starting a business right for me? Should I be investing in a home? All of those things are going to be decisions that they're going to be able to make. And hopefully in the process, they've learned the skills to be able to do that well.
Victor, so great speaking to you. And President Trump is speaking now about those Trump accounts. So we're going to go to him live.